Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good.
Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition, because I'm filling in for Dave Scott tonight. Dave Scott is out and about on a new route, and we're going to have a great time tonight. We have Arke Andrews joining us on this Friday. It's going to be awesome, guys, for hours 1 and 2. Hour 3, we have Steve Stockton Tales Untold Missing Person Mysteries, and I believe we have Lee Strauss dropping in with the Paranormal Report, as well as UFO and weird news to end off the show tonight. It's going to be a fantastic show. Filling in for Dave Scott once again. Let me go ahead and take a look and see who has the medal positions tonight. Courtesy of Race Fan, we have Race Fan with the gold. We have Road Flare with the silver. And we have Robert Lamoth Jr. with the bronze. All right, it's going to be an awesome show. Race Fan saying good evening, Dave, or Rob. Rob, I'll be Dave tonight. Call me Dave. Just call me Dave. We have Road Flare saying hi, guys. Hey, Road Flare, thanks for coming in. Robert Lamont Jr. saying, what's up, Dave? What's up, Robert Lamont Jr.? Right back to you. We got Kitty Catty Whack. Hoping everybody has a really great Friday. And here's to a wonderful weekend. Cheers. Appreciate you, Kitty Catty Whack, as well. Who else do we have? We have SJ. SJ is in the building saying hello, Kitty. Kitty. Okay, there you go. We got Leave the Bee. Leave the Bee. Hello, David. That's all our friends. Appreciate you coming on in and Leave the Bee. We have Eternity Eternal in the building. Hey, Eternity Eternal. Hi, Rob G and R. Keith. RG and R. Keith is going down tonight. We got Versatile Ocean Schmitty. Okay, that is spam. Get that up out of here. Who else do we have? We have Tracy Winters saying hi, everyone. Appreciate you coming on in, Tracy Winters. We have Babylon Rose. Thanks for coming in. Good evening, SOR fam. Appreciate you showing on up here. We have Zanos saying hello, SOR, and Super Dave Scott. Appreciate you showing on up here tonight as well. Kurt W75. Evening all. Hoping everyone's having a great Friday. Same to you. Frankie B, good evening. Thanks for coming in. The Ferret. Hey, the Ferret. Thanks for coming in. We got the Doug Shelby. The Doug Shelby. Happy Friday night, fellow SOR heads. Plus, we have Arke Andrews Friday night. Can I get a hell yeah? Hell yeah. We got Male WD40 bringing the lube for the show tonight. As always, appreciate showing on up. We got Millennium. Hello, Dave, fellow space travelers. Appreciate you coming on in tonight. Necessary Dialogue. I see you out there. Thanks for showing up. We got Operation Shutdown in the building. We got Lars Jansen. We got Billy Gunn. We got Matthew Gutka. Appreciate you all showing on up. Al Gray as well. Wes W. Decker in the building. Thanks for showing on up. Julie Farrell, Sister Julie out there keeping it lit. We do appreciate you. And we're about to start the podcast side of this. I'll get to the rest of you, I promise, on the first break. Here we go. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition. That means I'm filling in for Dave Scott here tonight. It's going to be a fantastic night. We have Arke Andrews joining us for hours 1 and 2. Then we have hour 3, Steve Stockton Tells Untold Mysteries, appearance from Lee Strauss, I hear, as well as UFO and Weird News. Let's get into the show. Let's go. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. Filling in for Dave Scott. Tonight, we're going to broadcast on our terrestrial affiliates across North America, plus digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Don't forget, you get access to archives for absolutely free. YouTube.com/@SpacedOutRadio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us on X and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio and at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website, is spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the SOR Newswire. You can get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can rock out to the man you hear right there, Mr. Rombo Mufadal. Plus, so much more. Tonight's going to be an awesome show. Filling in for Dave Scott, we have Arke Andrews stepping in the building for hours 1 and 2. Plus, an appearance from Lee Strauss at the Cryptid Paranormal Report in hour 3. Steve Stockton Tells Untold Mysteries, UFO and Weird News. Man, filling big shoes tonight, but it's going to be a great show as we go ahead and get right on into it and bring to the stage these demand you came. You didn't come to see me. You didn't come to see Dave Scott. You came to see Arke Andrews, and we're going to go ahead and bring him right up on the stage here. Welcome, Arke Andrews. How are you, sir?
Rob, not bad. How's yourself? Glad to be here.
Man, I'm doing so well. This is very rare that we get the stars get to align to where I get to sit on stage with Arke Andrews. We've done it like one other time, and it's always a pleasure. I met you in person. Great guy. I'm telling you. Dave has said this before, but I'm going to tell you, for me, I met Arke Andrews and his lovely fiance. Great people, just great individuals, human beings. And that's why I enjoy interacting with people like that, people that care about people. As we get ready to get into this show, Arke, I know everybody out there is going to have a lot of questions, and we're going to do this a little different tonight. You guys, we're not just going to save questions for the end. We're going to have questions all throughout the night. So make sure you go ahead, starting now, putting questions in caps, and I will make sure that occasionally I get to some of those as we have some of this conversation. But we're going to take a different route, right? We know Arke from being Arke, right? So you come to the show, you see Arke, but what do you know about Arke, right? That's what I want to know. I mean, he's a great person. I would like to get to know more, and we're going to kind of go into that. So Arke, with that being said, starting this show out, I would like to know, how did you get started in this? When was before you do that, what do you so the knowledge that you have in this subject, what do you consider that, like do you consider that you get this information through downloads, or do you see it as channeling? And then talk about, how you got started and when maybe the first time you realized that you had access to this knowledge.
Number one, much as I understand the idea of downloads and channeling, I deal with mine head on. 90% of it is literally face-to-face contact. But we do have to understand that my past life memories date back further than mankind can actually comprehend. I could put it in temporal terms, but I don't know if it's going to make any sense, and it's going to sound more like science fiction than even the rest of my life. No,
You know,
but no, most of it is head on.
you bring up a good thing here that I haven't ever really heard you talking about past lives. So some people have access to that to past lives in their current living life. Some people recall it. Some people don't recall it. Can you
Correct.
talk about that a little bit? Talk about maybe some of the things that you experienced in past life, because I don't think I've ever heard you speak on that before.
Probably not. Primarily because, well, we usually focus on the off-worlder side of it. But if you think of it this way, we know the corporeal body, the human body, or any other form, has a limited lifespan. Picture that as a vehicle. Okay, the soul lives. I think I've got an extra sound here going. I do. Sorry about that. I don't need that feedback. Anyway, picture your current life as you're the driver now. The body is not the driver. The body is the vehicle. Okay. Now, if you're driving a car, sooner or later that car, I'm talking a Ford or a Chevy or whatever, sooner or later that car is going to die. You get out of the car, you wander around, maybe you have to walk for a while. Eventually you pick another vehicle. Get in the vehicle, but you remember what you did in the last vehicle. Some of it you may well regret you did, or wish you'd done more of, but ultimately, the driver is the soul. Okay. Most people, when you get a new vehicle, when you're born into a new life, you forget what you did in the last life. There's a reason for that. Okay. The corporeal brain is not designed to handle that much information. So in modern terms, your brain is set up with a whole pile of hot links to your own personal section of the Akashic records, where you can go back, you can look through the different vehicles you've had, you can take a look at the skills you had and access them. I happen to be one of the people that can actively look at it and go, okay, this is what I was doing. This is the skill I had. Some of the skills I had, not good ones for today's world. Okay, but I just happen to remember a lot of them. Okay, now on this planet, I've only documented somewhere between 18 and 22. Okay, I don't know the exact number. I'm still in the middle of expanding on them. Some of the past lives are extreme, but the thing I did find out is that so many people I talk to, when I'm talking about past lives, go, oh, I was Joan of Arc. People, there was only one Joan of Arc. Okay, you can't have 7 people claiming to have been Joan of Arc. Now, most people's lives are literally just run-of-the-mill. Maybe you were a farmer, maybe you were a fisher. Every lifetime, you don't have to be a top-line individual. So some of the races I know of because I was one.
Okay, and you were a one what exactly?
Well, different races that I've been over the years. I haven't always taken on a human body.
Okay. Expand on that. That's interesting.
Well, for instance, you take a look at the Zertics. Okay. Now, I guess we're on video. It would make sense to do this. This contains a lot of the different races. Well, in all fairness, it only carries 60. Okay, but the Zertics are one of the few races that survive the transition between one sort of sense of reality and the next. Okay, now you know of the Big Bang Theory.
Yes, sir.
And I don't mean the sitcom. Although you might know that too. But if you think of the Big Bang, okay, that's a repeating incident. The Zertics are one of the few races that actually survive the transition. Most species are wiped out completely when it happens. and then you have to start all over again. The Zertics, you'll survive if you choose to have to be one.
That's interesting. So a repeating Big Bang, because I know they I think it was the Raelians that talk about an infinite universe where it's just infinite, and so with the Big Bang, that sounds like that's the same sort of theory. If you had to guess, or if you have knowledge of this, what was prior to the initial Big Bang?
An entire third dimensional corporeal rendition of what we have today. Okay, it just rebuilds itself, and unfortunately, people are still doing the same things they've done for literally multiple renditions. Now, I learned to call the Big Bang a flip because of the way I got shown how it works. Understand my idea of getting shown is kind of like you hop on a roller coaster and you slide down the roller coaster. You've been shown how the roller coaster works.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I've never heard that theory, but that's it. Very, very interesting. So if we are to go back, let me ask you this. When we, and I don't know if you get into any religion at all, but in religion, they talk about there being Adam and Eve as being supposedly the first two human beings on this planet. How do you translate that? And what do you look at that as?
Adam and Eve were real. But you gotta mix religion with logic. Okay. If Adam and Eve were in fact the only two people created at the time, we would have had so much inbreeding, the human race would have died out way before we ever got started.
Exactly, yeah.
So you're looking at literally thousands of people being being created at the same time. Adam and Eve were simply the ones they focused on. Okay, they weren't the only ones in existence.
Okay. And so, but do you agree with how that story goes, that there was a creator that created these first group of people, or what is your thought process on that?
Absolutely. Okay, this is where now you are right. I don't talk a lot about religion because let's understand something. Going through religion, okay, I've looked at a lot of different religious and spiritual practices. Mm-hmm. Every one of them, literally without exception, is identical except for the words.
Right.
There are minor little discrepancies. So whether somebody is, like I myself am Christian in as much as I believe wholeheartedly in God and in Christ. But the reason I use the term God is because I don't feel like spending 6 months saying God, Buddha, Allah, Shiva, him, her, it. There are so many different words for it. I'm lazy. So I use the term God. But when you look at it, number one, God set it all in motion. And ironically enough, and this is where I noticed in the chat room there, somebody was asking me if I'm for real or if this is just entertainment. I question that myself all the time. So what I ended up doing was this funny little thing. Well, not that one. This funny little thing. The questions you're asking, this series, I literally am starting to cover it. But what it boils down to is this. The planet Earth itself was built. Okay. It started being built, then it took on a life of its own. Humans were, the bodies of humans were created from dirt and given life. The rendition, now I only know the Christian Bible. I can't tell you about what it says in all the others. I haven't read them all yet. Okay, but go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you because just like the person in the chat, okay, there wants to question Arke Andrews. And we talked about this before the show. I think when people come in, they hear Arke, giving this information, but I don't think they know when this began or how this started for you. So are you able to go ahead and go into that? Like, when was the first time, I guess with an encounter that you started getting this information or obtaining this information?
Now I'm gonna narrow that down to the first time this lifetime.
Okay.
Okay. And that would be the day I was born. When I was actually born, I actually remember coming down the birthing canal. Okay, rest assured, people that say birth is a wonderful experience don't recall it. So, very long story short, I was born, mom and dad, I was born mottled green and black. Mom and dad recoiled from me at that point. Now, I was told it was jaundice. Okay, but I ended up in the incubator. Now, after the torture I went through when I was born, I went, no, I'm not doing this. I literally got out of my body. Okay, I'm in the incubator and I just pulled the plug. I left. Now, I will tell you, if you're ever going to astral travel, do not do this in an incubator. They get testy. So, of course, I pulled my entire life force out and I flatlined. But before I could get very far, the Council of 12 stopped me cold. It's like, you can't leave. I'm like, what do you mean I can't leave? Well, you signed a contract. You have to be here. I didn't sign up for this abuse. Well, long story short, I ended up back. Okay. And I mean, my whole life has been science fiction, but in that journey, I ran into the Council of 12 to start with, as well as a number of other races while I was over there. That was where it started. So I have no idea what it's like to look at the world and go, oh, you people you're all human. You were all here as humans. This is where it's all been. I never got the opportunity to even look at that.
Wow. Wow. That's an awesome perspective. That's what I talk about a lot about, some kids being born unlocked with their abilities. And I could see that. I could see, growing up from a very young age, if you're already connected and unlocked, then yeah, you wouldn't see the world the same way that another person who isn't yet unlocked would see it. So that makes a lot of sense. That's interesting and awesome to be able to look into that with you. Now, as you were growing up, because and I think when you were talking about the contract, I hear that a lot. And when people normally are saying that it's some sort of contract that's agreed on in a past life, is that what I'm to understand on that?
Well, that's probably what you understand. The contract is with yourself.
Okay.
Okay. While you're in between lifetimes, you set things up. You pick who your parents are, who you're going to run into down the road somewhere. But the idea of the contract is you're coming here, you're coming to this life to experience these concepts. The easiest one to understand is you come to learn about cancer. Okay, everybody hears about cancer. Well, your actions and your behavior, the choices you make after you're born, will determine whether or not you learn about cancer by developing it or by working with people that have developed it. But that's where this is why I say it's not laid out that you will do this, this, and this. This greater plan that God has, God's greater plan was real simple. Go forth, remember, as in find all your different parts of you, all of your soulmates as you go along. That's a complicated conversation. Okay. But you're here to remember about a certain aspect. Maybe you came here to remember about you. Maybe you came here to experience life on the street as a pauper. Now, no human that I'm aware of consciously goes, hey, I know I'm going to experience being beaten to a pulp every day of my life until I'm 15. Nobody sets that up.
Right, right, right. No, you're right about that. Now, when did you, because today you're delivering this information. When did you get to a point to realize that because obviously you had the connection prior, but when did you get to a point to where you realized that you were able to verbalize this information? And, at what age did this start happening? Did you start realizing that that's what you had?
In all honesty, it was accidental. I would say I was 10 years old, sitting on a park bench at the school, right? And I never did know if this girl said anything. But this young 16, 17-year-old blonde girl sits down beside me. Now, I'm only 10. Okay. And what I heard is, I don't understand it. I've had a boyfriend for the last 3 years. Now he won't touch me, won't even look at me. Why not? Now, I don't know if she asked that or if I just heard it. But I turned around and I looked at her and I said, well, he's sleeping with your best friend. Well, she goes, what do you mean? I said, they're crawling into bed together. Now, at 10 years old, you have no clue what that means.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I sat there and I looked at her and I said, well, technically, I don't know if she's your best friend, but she looks like this, behaves like this, and you met her like this. Oh my gosh, that's my best friend. I says, I know I'm overstepping, but you might want to redefine best. From that moment on, before lunch, before school, after school, lunch, and recess, I had people lining up to ask me what was going on with their life, with their family life, whether or not mom and dad were coming home, because I was on a military base in what amounted to a Bible Belt during the heart of the Vietnam War. So, you end up with nightmares that you just don't want to have.
Okay, so you tap into this ability that you have. Almost sounds like a telepathy, and then foresight as well. Sounds like kind of the two things intertwined. When did that? Because I feel like growing up as well, like I was a friend that was able to talk rationale to friends and talk them through situations. I was similar in that way at a young age, 10, 11, 12. I was similar to that. When did you tap into the extraterrestrial part of it, or just the higher conscious part of the conversation? When did that start?
Well, it started technically, it started literally at 5 years old. Roughly speaking, about 4:14 in the afternoon of August 1st of 1968. Now, at that point, and now understand this went on a military base, so there is no way I'm going to prove any of it. So yes, this sounds like science fiction. Okay, but when it happened, I ran into a Sperzazian head on, who literally saved my life. As it turned out, that was a payoff. That was a return of favor to what I did the lifetime before.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it was that day that I ended up running headlong into them. It wasn't until many years later that it all pieced together and I was able to talk to people, because what happened that day, you used to mention it and I break down in tears.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome to get this look into Arke Andrews, and we're doing things a little bit different tonight. We're going into our first break of the night already with Arke Andrews. Hours 1 and 2. Make sure you don't go anywhere. Come right back right after this break as we continue. All right, we're clear. And as you can see in the chat, everyone's trying to figure out what the R is in Arke. I don't know if you want to tell them or if it's.
I don't have a problem with it. You know, from my standpoint, most of the questions that people ask, I don't have a problem with. Okay. There are ones that if somebody asks it, I will tell you flat out, either I don't know or I'm not telling you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, businesses, just for your edification, Rob, businesses know me as Ronald because computers don't like middle names. Right. So the businesses know me as Ronald. Most everybody else knows me as Keith.
Mm.
You know, now I go by Keith. Yeah, I don't mind the name Ronald, but somebody sent me off at one of the events I went to. And I told the guy, I said, look, I said, my first name is Ronald, but everybody calls me Keith. And he came across in a very confrontational form, very derogatory tone to it. He was going to call me Ronald.
Wow.
And I looked at him, things shifted. I looked at him and I went, I would suggest you forget the name ever existed. You know, and don't get me wrong. If somebody just calls me Ronald, I'll answer. But the way he came across, not a good concept. And no, I'm not going to tell you who that was.
Doug Shelby says, Arke is cooler, way cooler than Ronald. And Fast Henry said, Ronald, nobody guessed because they were throwing Roland, Richard, Rolando, Ronaldo. There was all kind of Ricardo. And you guys are all wrong. You guys are all. You thought you knew Arke. You're gonna get to know Arke tonight. That's the whole goal of this. What we're doing here. We're gonna do it a little different with Arke. We'd like to know the person, right? I think it's so important when you are talking to someone. Yeah, you can get the knowledge, but you also should know the person. I think the person is a lot more interesting as well.
Oh, I do agree with you there. Funny thing is, I can tell you how come I go by Keith instead of Ronald.
Yeah,
there's a logic behind that as well.
We have 2 minutes. We have 2.5 minutes on break here.
Yeah. No, my name was changed by mom and dad. I mean, I was named Ronald Keith Andrews, but it got changed from Ronald to Keith on that first date that I just mentioned. Because that date I walked out of the morgue. And yes, I did say out of.
Wow.
Like I said, my life is more science fiction than anything else.
Yeah, I mean,
which is where this reads like a science fiction, science fantasy book. But according to one girlfriend I had, it's more like an autobiography.
That's your book?
Yeah. That's the other Walking Chronicles.
I don't
the third one I'm tying off. There's 12 in total.
Put it up on the screen. I've never heard this, Arke. Show everyone this book because Arke Andrews has a book, guys. You guys should definitely go and support and get this thing. I had no clue.
They're actually now available in PDF. I actually have a website that was amazingly inexpensive. But these first 3 books coming out are definitively science fiction, science fantasy, because they haven't happened yet. The other books ahead of it, on the first 8, have renditions of things I literally either went through or witnessed people going through. And as it used to say in Dragnet, the names of the names and locations have been changed to protect the innocent.
Yeah. That is interesting and awesome. That is interesting and awesome. And actually, I would like to talk about that when we come back from break. Let's talk about your book. Let's talk about what it's about. Let's talk about, details from the book as well. I've never heard that you had a book, Arke, all this time. That is insane. But that's what happens when you get to know your guests, then you find out tidbits like that. And I think that's actually pretty awesome. We got about 1 minute left. Let me welcome a few more people in here. Izzy Beth, I see you out there. Who else has come in and snuck in? Jeff Garvey has snuck in the building. Fast Timmy, I think you were here, maybe not. I want to say, hey, what's up to you? Lightwalkers, you snuck in as well. Let's see. Who else? Walter Kokubinski. Okay. Kai Snyder says he walked out of the morgue. Yeah, we'll hear more about that as well. I'll go ahead and tag that comment, and we'll bring that back up. And we got about 20 seconds, 15 seconds here. And let's see. All right. I do have some of your questions already tagged, guys, as we get ready to come back right about now. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition. I'm filling in for Dave Scott tonight. Yes, I am. And I'm having an awesome time with Arke Andrews. We've already had one segment in. If you missed any of our conversations so far, jump in the archives, absolutely free, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Options are endless there. As we go ahead and get right back into the conversation, we're getting to know Arke tonight. And we're going to ask some more questions here. So, Arke, during the break, and I want the radio audience to know this, Arke is an author as well. Not only is he giving all this awesome information, but he's written a book. And it only makes sense, right? With all that data there, it's definitely something that you want to do. You held up the book during the break here. If you would, tell the radio audience what the title of this book is, and let's talk about what it's about.
Well, this one, now I've actually got 8 books in print.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, but this one and its sequel, this is the Elderbachian Chronicles. It is it's science fiction, science fantasy, depending on who you talk to. It is post-apocalyptic, but the Wolfpack is a group of misfits that have gotten together to try and help pull civilization back into a semblance of normalcy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, each of the characters, then because I'm also a Dungeons and Dragons player, have been since about the first Saturday night of June of 1976. I started playing.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of the characters in this book is based on either a person I've known. The main characters were all built, the baseline, built by other gamers. So these people have very different personalities. But The Birth of the Wolfpack and the sequel, The End of an Epoch, are available on Buy Me a Coffee. buymeacoffee.com/InnerVoiceJ. You can find all of them. And they're all available in PDF form as well as physical, as well as in this form. Of course, in this form, I actually sign them. PDF, not so much.
Guys, jump on that. He just told you where to find them. And you were going to say something as well, Arke?
Yeah, this was written literally. I found a way back in grade 10. I was asked to write a story outline for an English project. And the original story outline is in the back of this book and every volume. Okay. But I found a way to combine the concepts of religion, science, or religion, spirituality, single God, multiple gods, technology and magic, ancient races, aliens and humans, all, and then of course creationism and evolution, all under one. These books contain all of it.
That is definitely awesome. The artwork looks really good as well. And you said something earlier that rang, resonated with me, because it's something I say as well, which is there, in a lot of cases, science fiction becomes science fact. And you stated that about your book. You said it's science fiction, but the things haven't happened yet. What are some of those things that are currently science fiction in your book that you envision happening down the line?
Actually, in all fairness, I pray they don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the bad stuff.
Because
yeah.
What the end of what brings this about is the book before this one. Okay, and that is an alien invasion combined with natural disaster, as well as ancient race interference. Okay, i.e., the world goes to heck in a handbasket overnight.
Yeah.
But I've laid out the whole 9 yards to it. Okay, and the other issue of this is on the back. Obviously, it's got a cover. But this is the part that gets more entertaining in my eyes. The second book, which is The End of an Epoch, they patched together. Now, you're not going to get that part in PDF. But I managed to find a way to pull it all together under one title.
I think you should talk about that more, Arke. I think that should be promoted and definitely something that you should be putting out there more. I think it's very interesting that you have taken, and put all those elements under one book or set of books. I think it's awesome to think ahead to do that. But then also when you say that it's science fiction that could potentially become fact, even though you hope that it doesn't, I can see the realism and the plausibility in some of those things actually happening. Alien invasion, it's very possible. And the everything else that you mentioned, I'm sitting here envisioning that, and I'm like, man, that's really not too far off. It is really, and that's kind of one of the things why I always talk about we have the ability in this moment through this disclosure thing to try to shift the way that humanity goes, because it could go the way that you're mentioning in the book. It could go that way, or we could maybe redirect it and move it a different way. What is your thought process in that?
The future is not set. Question for you, Rob, and I'll get to that in 10 seconds. Do you mind if I put the link to the Buy Me a Coffee site?
Please do. Please do. Yes, sir. Please do. Please do. And then we'll also post it in the description of this video.
I don't know what I just hit, so that's not going to happen on my end. Okay, well, I'm going to try it. But anyway, is the future set? No. This concept that everybody has, what will be, will be. Scrap the idea, in my opinion. Now, do not get me wrong. Religion-wise, I am Christian. But God's plan was pretty cut and dried. Do unto others as you desire them to be to do unto you. The idea here is you were given free will and free choice. You weren't given freedom from consequence. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of discrepancy, and I'm not going to go into the big problems on that end. But we have the ability, if we start focusing literally on working with each other, on helping each other, we can take this fiasco that we call civilization and put it on stable ground. But it's not going to happen if we keep focusing on who shot who ripped who off, and who's trying to get what from where. It's just not going to work out that way.
Very interesting. And so because I have some ideas, and I've said these a million times before, but what are some of the ideas that you have to kind of lead us down the correct path, to take us down the one that's more beneficial for humanity?
Well, ultimately, that's where my free magazine comes in. But it boils down to this. Be true to yourself first. These are the 3 karmic laws. They apply to everybody, God included. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And energy out, energy in. It is strongly recommended whenever you experience, witness, read, whatever, something negative, find 2 things to focus on and to experience that are positive. In this way, you can tilt the scale back, and we can put civilization back on track. We've got to quit relying on the government, the elites, and or your industry moguls. We got to stop, or for that matter, the spiritual leaders, because the path they're taking you down is based on fear, control, and neglect. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm tired of a life that way.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely am, and I totally appreciate that perspective because I think that's so true. And I'm always thinking of or attempting to think of ways that we can right the ship. And I think, as you said, doing to others as you want them doing to you. That's the golden rule. They teach you that in kindergarten, which actually I think is the most awesome thing about this whole society and system that we have is that at least when you when they put you in the system, the first thing they teach you is to do unto others as you want them to do unto you. Now, obviously, it doesn't end up applying the further on you get into life, and the way society is built, it really doesn't do anything, or it doesn't apply too much. But as far as living outside of that and attempting to elevate your consciousness and attempting to elevate humanity's consciousness too, yeah, that's the energy that you need to have. And it's actually cool to see that. So let me ask you this then, because obviously a lot of people talk about a lot of species of extraterrestrials being out there. And I can say for sure, obviously, we know we're being visited. We know there's craft in the air. We've seen those craft land. We've seen there's been people that seen things get out of those craft. So we know there's at least one type of species here for sure. How many overall do you think are here? And what is the is it mostly good species as far as benevolent versus malevolent? Like, what's the ratio there, if you know?
Oh, in the area, okay, it's definitely tilted more in benevolent, or in more accurately, neutral is the majority. Okay, but that's because the consortium keeps it trapped that way. Okay, that boils down to a whole pile of people that there are in the consortium that I'm aware of, a minimum of 2,500 different species. Okay, each of those species have multiple races. So I can't give you an accurate count. I can tell you I've got documentation in the book that I showed earlier, in this one, right? I've got 60 races here. I've got volume 2 I'm working on. Okay, and again, this is available either in hard copy or PDF. Okay, but I've got another over 60 that I've already started documenting.
So where do they work? Okay, so if our plan is to go take hopefully take the positive route, the most beneficial route for humanity, which species are okay with that, and then which species are totally against humanity enlightening themselves or raising their consciousness?
Well, they're not so much against humanity enlightening themselves, because oddly enough, the more enlightened people are, the blood chemistry changes, altering the flavor in a beneficial way. So, I mean, this sounds rude, but the Tech-Elect would love for humanity to enlighten itself more. Okay, because the taste of the meat and the taste of the blood is a whole lot better. So
Yeah.
it's not a question of don't get enlightened. It's just, come on, I want you to come over for dinner. Do not accept.
Yeah, I won't be accepting that offer at all. And that's another great point. I mean it, and I'm glad that you kind of point to those things, because there's a lot of people in the community that only look at extraterrestrials as being here for love and light. But I think realistically, if there's multiple species, there's got to be a variation. So it's cool that you talk about the ones that might want to eat us, because I think they're there. I think they definitely are there, and they probably would love nothing more than to eat into some human flesh. But with that being,
Yeah, they were playing on. The Tech-Elect were a wonderful group with a couple of minor quirks. They originally targeted Earth to strip mine it. They did not expect to find humans. But boy, were they tickled pink when they found out that humans actually tasted good. Because now not only did they have the minerals they needed, but they had a food supply with a great delicacy. Yes, I know that sounds terrible. You know, people talk about, oh, I love the flavor of chicken or I love the flavor of beef. Well, this is just another meat.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's why you should stay away from cannibalism, because they said cannibals have said the human meat tastes delicious, and I will never know. But with that being said, there is, when we look at these extraterrestrials, here's a perspective that I had on a previous show that I did on my own channel. And I've said this here actually too. And I said this because most people say that for the most part, the extraterrestrials are here to help us. They love us. They just want to help and support us. But then I looked at it as, okay, what if extraterrestrials are here, their presence is here because they want to make sure that we can't leave this planet? Like, because
Not gonna happen.
Okay, can you expand on that?
Certainly. Mankind is leaving Earth. We are not a quarantine planet. We are protected from the standpoint of mankind right now as a civilization is on the verge of either blowing itself back to the Stone Age or getting off this rock on a solid fashion. You know, we're already on, and I mean Earth, man, is already accessing the moon. They're already on Mars. I mean, it was great when they said, oh, we got the rover to Mars in the early 2000s, I think. Right? That would have been news when they did it back in the 70s. But we're already on Mars. We're already on Titan. We're already on Io. You know, we're already there. And we're not slowing down.
Okay. So with that being said, my idea has been that based on my own perspective, looking at human beings, and I hate to even say this, but human beings, we do everything we can to go against the benefit of the planet, right? We destroy the planet. We do all these crazy, nasty things. We leak nuclear, radioactive materials into the environment. And so I was just thinking, okay, if there are a group of conscious-minded extraterrestrials that are watching us, that they wouldn't want that stuff out there in the universe. Like, they wouldn't want us to be able to take that off planet. So are they okay with the current state of human beings and the war mindset that we have? And why? I'm just trying to figure out why they would let us off planet.
Well, number one, everybody on planet, off planet, in planet, doesn't matter. Everything in existence has free will and free choice. Nobody, God included, is going to stop mankind from leaving Earth. Okay, that's our choice. You cannot stop cold evil happening. You really can't. Evil boils down to people taking their own well-being as a priority and neglecting side effects. Now, where it comes to nuclear power, okay. Oh, something I should point out because it falls into it. Somebody up here I saw asked what kind of people are from the 10th dimension. Everything that is in existence on, around Earth that you ever hear about, every single thing is third dimensional. None of it is from another dimension. Different vibratory rates, yes. But you take a look at nuclear power. Okay. Nuclear power is a natural scientifically evolutionary step. Mm-hmm. And every one of the races that are out there had to go through the same step. They had to develop nuclear power in order to get to fusion. Okay. And ultimately to the OT drive, to the star drive.
Wow. Okay. Very, very interesting perspective there. Okay. So then on some level, so we look then explain then the galactic, whatever supposedly the Galactic Federation is supposed to be about, because I from my
That's the easy part.
outlook, I look at it as potentially like maybe like a UN sort of thing, where it's a bunch of countries, and it's a bunch of the best races out there that are coming together for good to kind of govern space or govern the
Fine, George,
universe.
I think he's crooked.
Is that correct, or how does that go?
No, you got that on the money. The consortium itself governs the space in between known empires. Okay, so everybody and the council itself, I've actually got that article coming out in May. The council itself is set up to oversee that interaction. But the different species, like for instance, man, has freedom to do what it will with this planet. And from the alien standpoint, the xeno-socioeconomic evolution of Earth is a mind-bogglingly intriguing concept. Okay, this is why, and you can check the facts yourself, don't take my word for it. Okay, but every time Mars gets to its closest point to Earth, UFO sightings triple. Well, the fact of the matter is, every time Mars gets that close, the Martokians who live there, underground, but they live there, bring their students over here to watch. Basically, it's a social studies field trip, because they're looking at the way mankind is developing and going, this is the turning point. We don't get to see it this close to home very often. They went through it themselves. Take a look at the surface of Mars. It didn't end well.
Yeah. And you kind of just answered one of the questions I had, because I have a show that I'm doing upcoming, which poses a question of, are extraterrestrials potentially coming from somewhere within our own solar system?
Yes.
And it would make sense, because here's the thing, like a lot of people, skeptics mainly, and some scientists will make a point, or try to make a point, that because distances are so vast, it's unlikely they're traveling from this other star system, even though we know there are technologies that they likely have that allow them to do this. But I went to a more simple level and said, okay, what if maybe, the same way that people think that bases are on the moon, that they maybe have outposts just around the solar system, just on different planets. It would make sense, especially if they're coming here. It would make sense that they've maybe pit stopped at other planets here in our solar system. And you just stated that potentially there's this Mars race out there underground. So, I mean, that would make sense as well. But I just was kind of pondering and posing the question, because I think more so, we know they're under the ocean here, but a lot of people lean into the fact that maybe they've been here on this planet the whole time. And I'm like, okay, but you see them coming from outer space. So likely, would it make more sense that they're probably coming from one of these other celestial bodies in our solar system? Because we got about 1 minute. Can you answer that?
Yeah, many of the bodies in the solar system are actually occupied. Okay, one of the primary ones will be Mobius, which you'll never see from Earth. Okay, it's on the other side of the sun in the exact same matched orbit as Earth is. But I do know that there are 5 or 6 planets that are actually occupied, some which you don't know about, not the least of which is Vulcan, which is inside the sun's photosphere.
Yeah, okay. This is awesome. Definitely glad we're getting to talk to Arke and go down these rabbit holes with Arke tonight. Doing something a little different. Once again, this is Mr. Rob G filling in for Dave Scott tonight on Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition, as he is out and I am filling in. We will see you guys right back here on the other side of the break.
Conversations that move the needle.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
Okay, Keith, we're off camera for the next 5 minutes. I'll see you after the break.
Okie doke, not a problem.
All right. right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition. Means I'm filling in for Dave Scott here tonight, and we were going to get into some of your questions here in the second hour. I do have them tagged. We'll start off the hour with that. We have about 30 seconds left before we come back from radio, and the address is on the screen for Arke Andrews and where you can find his books. That is Buy Me a Coffee /Inner Voice J. Inner Voice J, the letter J. As we got about 5 seconds here before we come back, let's get ready to go. All right, everybody, welcome back to Space Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition with me, your host, Mr. Rob G, filling in for Dave Scott tonight. We are having an awesome time here with Arke Andrews. We're getting them in a different light. I love it. Arke has a book as well. You can get that at Buy Me a Coffee /Inner Voice J, the letter J. Make sure you guys go out there and support and get in some really good stuff with Arke Andrews. If you missed anything, hop in the archives like we always say here. And we have a few questions. I definitely want to start the hour off with some of these. We have the first question that I ended up tagging here was from Marty Burbach. And he was just asking, Keith, there is a conspiracy theory the bad aliens are controlling our souls in a reincarnation cycle. Thus, Earth is a prison planet. Can you comment on that?
Well, after I get past the laughing thing, if this is a prison planet, ask yourself this. Number one, we'll answer the question. I'd be asking the individual that tells you that, do they want a shovel or is a backhoe better? Because the reality is, if this is a prison planet, how are so many people being abducted? I mean, realistically, if we've got prisons here, how many people get day passes?
Yeah. I can see that. That makes a lot of sense. Arke Andrews and Robert Wath Jr. is asking, Arke, what's under the pyramids? Do we know?
Well, I could be really rude and say Earth, but no, there is a lot of technology under the pyramids that people don't realize. Certainly, there is thermomagnetics, which is an odd setup. The hieroglyphs themselves are a circuit board in a sense. Okay, but under the pyramids, there's some pretty ancient stuff that mankind is in no position to understand yet.
All right, good stuff. And let's see, Digger Dog is asking here, are some of the non-humans afraid of our ability to remote view over distance and time?
Okay. Okay. Number one, to remote view, no, they're not afraid of it. Okay. Well, I guess some you might say in a sense are. The militarily inclined ones don't like people being able to do it. But here's the thing. Humans are infants in their capacity to remote view. Okay. And humans, limited by their own comprehension, think that it takes more effort to view the other side of the Milky Way than it does to look across your living room. Okay, humans are confused by it. But as far as the remote viewing time, they've got no worry about it. They are curious as to why people don't pay attention to it more. Because if you think about it, if you looked back over time to what some of these other civilizations have done, maybe mankind would get an idea the path they're on is, shall we say, ill-advised.
All right. And let's see. Who else do we have here? We have the Andromedan asking, I have a question. What kind of races are from the 10th dimension? You answered that, I think. But if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, that was the one that caught my attention.
Okay. And let's see. We have Joe Monk asking, the aliens are here because they know humans have potential to rule the galaxy or just blow ourselves up. So just a statement basically there from Joe Monk.
Yeah, pretty much. Mind you, every race has the same potential.
The Andromedan asking, So I did not understand it. Aren't there other dimensions than 3D?
There are. The Reader's Digest version is when we came here in the first place. The soul, what operates the human body, is way too powerful to be contained in a corporeal form. So it splits up into the soulmate, soul family, the whole 9 yards, all over the third dimension. You're spending your whole drive is to find all of these different component parts. When you have found all of you, when you remember who and what you are, you go back to the Great Hub. And from there, you can choose to go into any one of the other 11 dimensions and do the whole thing all over again.
All right.
So do they exist? Certainly. But it's a very long, drawn-out process.
Okay, Joe Monk is asking here. Let's see. Oh, I lost Joe Monk here. Oh, let me get to the next one. I got to find your question again. Okay, here it is. Joe Monk is asking any insights on the massive earthquakes that are happening all over the planet right now.
Yeah, you'll love this one. Mankind is treating itself and the planet like absolute garbage. Well, Earth, now understand, the Kaboran, every Kaboran is a planet, but every planet is not a Kaboran. Okay, Earth is a Kaboran. You know her as Gaia, Mother Earth, Mother Nature. I know her as Itza, because that's what she told me her name was. With the way man is treating her, she's getting annoyed. Now, you think about a dog with a flea on it, and the flea bites the dog, and the dog goes shake, shake, and does damage, or dislodges the fleas. Once you have number one cause of the massive earthquakes, mankind is doing it to themselves with the amount of negativity that mankind is focusing on. It's disrupting Esau's outlook. Second contributing factor is the Calder race. You know them as dwarves. They are in inner Earth or Middle Earth or Hollow Earth, whatever you want to call it. They have the wherewithal to, like, let's just take DuPont, the major industry. Just take their manufacturing plant. The Kaldar have the ability to drop a city out from underneath us and still leave the one factory standing. What you would call a sinkhole. The Kaldar can do that like that. Okay, they've got the capacity to make it happen. But those are your two major causes.
Alrighty. And we have Julie Farrell asking, are they dark matter phenomenon? Tornadoes and hurricanes, are they dark matter phenomenon?
No. Dark matter is another issue altogether. Tornadoes and hurricanes are caused by, you guessed it, Esau going, and all of a sudden you got a sheepload of trouble on the water. She's just taking a breath. Or like when you burn yourself, you blow off. You blow your own air onto it, with your own lungs to try and cool the damage. Same thing happens with a forest fire.
All right. And let's see. We have Sandra Heath asking, can these be activated again under the pyramids?
Some could be. The thing is that the people that had the pyramids built, the Ennead, who, yes, they took on the mantle. They arrived and mankind goes, oh, you're gods. The Ennead went, okay, great. So what do we get out of the deal? They are the ones that orchestrated some of the terraforming technologies that are built into the process under the pyramids. But They built them there as a reference point, not as a way of terraforming Earth. Earth is already good to go. It was a way of saying, okay, let's bury this information so that when mankind is capable, they'll be able to terraform actual planets, not Kaboran. Okay, you don't go rearranging the Kaboran surface. It just isn't good. It's kind of like forcing plastic surgery on somebody. Not polite.
All right, I like that. And next question is coming from Izzy Beth. Izzy Beth saying, Arke, were you a human in your former incarnation?
The short answer is yes. My last incarnation, I worked for the American military. I was born in 1898 in Chicago, Illinois. Ended up joining the American military, died in 1956 in what became Chicago General. I do not know what my name was. Okay, I have enough trouble remembering what my name is this time. But I've spent many lifetimes on Earth that I was a human. I spent many times on Earth that I wasn't.
All right. And then we have the Andromedan again asking, I have another question. Why are there no talks about other galaxies and its different races?
Well, primarily there's so much going on here. From my standpoint, we start here. From mankind's standpoint, you guys on the whole, and whatever you do, try not to take offense to this. On the whole, humans are still caught up with the idea of, oh my gosh, your skin color is funny, or you're not crawling into bed with the same person, or you're worshiping somebody by a different name. You're not ready, or you're either not ready or not willing to try and wrap your brain around other universes is the biggest reason.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And let's see, we have Fast Hemi saying, what does Arke think about the columns under structures in Egypt?
Those are part of a second generation terraforming technology library.
All right.
Yeah, I know that was a real short answer, but that's literally what they are. Okay. You got to remember, when you start looking at terraforming, it's not just a question. It's not just a question of how to make the planet change. It's a question of looking at the impact that's going to have on the wind currents, on the lighting, the whole 9 yards. Not to mention the subquantum biomagnetoelectric modifications that take place as all of this hiccups.
All right. And let's see, we have Zanos asking, did aliens invent money as control or did man?
Every single species, in this case, will settle for man did it. And the reason was simple. I don't know about you, but I find it a lot easier to drag around a dollar coin or a dollar bill than I do to carry a chicken. That's really what it boils down to. This is also why we are now moving to electronic money. We're getting off this planet. Try moving gold bullion.
I like that, Arke. I like that. Great answer. Let me see. Bomber, or actually that comment was for me. I'll address that later, Bomber, in a minute here. We got Flubber Lane asking, what does Arke think the Earth will be like in 1,000 plus years from now?
Oh, that's the easy part. Been there, done that, so to speak. Somewhere around that point, we are likely to see a combination of Star Trek and Star Wars bar scenes, where you've got races from all over the place, races and species, interacting on a generally positive interaction. Mankind will end up, assuming it doesn't blow itself out of the water, it will end up as a member of the consortium. Now, here's the neat part. let's assume mankind does blow itself back to the Stone Age. It'll just take longer to get to the consortium.
All right. And I'm seeing out there, says CLO Souls asking fast, Hemi, did he skip your question? I've tagged all the ones that I've seen. If I did skip you fast, Hemi, that means I didn't see it. If you could go ahead and repost that for me then, and or maybe I did ask it. I don't recall. But if you can, go ahead and put it back out there for me, and that would be appreciated. As we await that question here, I would like to know, here's the thing. Arke, we have extraterrestrials underwater right now, and they're going back and forth. Is it something that we could look at as adversarial in nature, as far as the way that they're sitting right off of our coastlines? It seems like major cities, they're sitting right off the coastlines. We have the drone situation in New Jersey, over a really populated area. First of all, what race is that, if it's even known, the ones that are down in the ocean? And then, are they strategizing out there? Because it seems like if we look at our military and how we handle business, and we sit right off the coast of other countries, strategically waiting and for a moment, is this what they're doing, or what in the world are they doing underwater?
Well, number one, you can look at it as adversarial. I just don't see the point. Okay. The reason being, number one, humans are looking at it from a military standpoint. Humans are very antiquated, very childlike. Okay. I mean, quite seriously, if they had, just picture this, if they are the ones that are off the coast, let's say they decided to take out, let's say, California, just for instance. You know how they do it to start with? You've got your coastal city. You get a 500-foot plus tsunami that'll come in and wipe it out. All they need to do is pop one gun up out of the water, and they don't even have to pop it out of the water, to be honest with you. A subquantum shot will wipe out every living thing in any city without doing any damage to the property. You know, and so you can look at it from an adversarial standpoint, but understand these guys don't play with the idea of, oh, they're not ready for an attack. War is brutal, and mankind hasn't got a prayer of comprehending it to speak of, because mankind still thinks warfare is an exchange of firefighting. No, warfare is, we're here to wipe you out. Now, you got to remember, the consortium has a safeguard against this to make sure no race on Earth does that. Okay. The other thing we have to understand is that it's not just aliens there. There are a lot of ancient races that are underwater that evolved. I call them ancient races. They evolved on Earth. Okay. But they are, mankind, you got to realize, mankind so often takes a look at it and goes, oh, there's an unknown ship. There's a UFO, unidentified flying object. Let's shoot it down and then ask if they're friendly. Now, do you see a flaw in this logic?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's
definitely a flaw in that logic for sure. And let me see here. We have J True Seeker asking, is there any connection with UFO contact in relation to the history of the Andrews family history going back to Canadian prairies, mid-USA, ancient Ireland, Scotland, Atlantis?
To the Andrews name, I do not know. Okay, I know some, and I'm not getting into the family members I know of, because I haven't even dealt with them to talk to them about it. So I'm not about to give names. I can tell you, I was here on Atlantis in another form, in an Atlantean form, when Atlantis left. And yes, I did say it left. It didn't sink.
Wow. Awesome stuff. And Izzy Beth is asking, in the future, will we have an AI robot war? And if so, do we survive that?
Well, two major factors. And it's a great question, Izzy. Number one, the future is not written, so I cannot say effectively we will have one. If we have a robot war, the odds are there will be enough people survive that we can rebuild. It's kind of like bombing yourself back to the Stone Age. But you'll end up reducing population to a staggeringly small level and then rebuild again, and hopefully you get it right this time. So far, mankind's track record for changing path after they do something stupid hasn't been great.
Alrighty. And let me address this because I keep forgetting to do this for Sister Julie out there. The Desert Clam has issued the password for the night, which is Gallophobia, fear of France or the French. Gallophobia, fear of France or the French. I made sure that I went ahead and got that out there tonight. Appreciate you, Julie, Sister Julie, for dropping that one on us here tonight as we go into the next question here, which is from Leecham the Lizard. Are there any reptilian ancient races, or are they mainly of off-world origin? Also, what did the dinosaurs and the dragons look and act like? Is any of what we know accurate?
Well, a couple of things. The Chitauri are an ancient race. They are a reptilian race based in the bowels of Africa. There are a number of other ones, of other ancient races that are currently have moved underground. They evolved at the same time, essentially, as mankind did. Okay, mind you, in some cases they evolved in a less assisted fashion. As far as the dragons, well, we know for an absolute certainty, about 10 years ago, if I recall, they found a skeleton of a lizard with a dual nasal cavity. One nasal side was charred black as Hades. The other one was cleaned out. Net result, a physical representation, physical skeleton indicating a fire-breathing dragon. Now, the one they found was only, if I remember correctly, about 5 feet long. But what we know of the dragons, what we know of the dinosaurs, some of it is definitively accurate. The thing that was misunderstood was people thought, the paleontologists thought that dinosaurs were a grayish lizard, a grayish leathery color. They were vibrantly colored. Okay, and some did develop hair, some developed fur. Yeah, we know, like, scientists have tracked a lot of the dinosaurs to the birds. Okay, I'm telling you, that's not the only split they went down. I do have in volume 2, 3 or 4 different races that evolved from dinosaurs. Much like the Chitauri, by the way, didn't evolve so much from a dinosaur, from a specific one. They're another issue altogether.
All right, and I know we still have another question here, but we are running up close here to the break. So, guys, what we're going to do is I'm still tagging questions out here, so make sure you go ahead and submit those and keep them in all caps as we go deep with Arke tonight, getting to know the man behind the message. And it's been awesome tonight so far. So make sure, guys, if you missed any of the show, jump into archives, youtube.com/@spaced-out-radio, as we get ready to take our final break of the night with Arke Andrews. The time is going so fast. Make sure, though, that if you go get something during this break, just make sure that you come right back right after the break. That's all I ask. It's Mr. Rob G. It's After Hours Radio Show, filling in for Dave Scott here tonight on Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. We'll be right back after this break. All right, we are clear. We are clear. Awesome stuff, Keith. Awesome stuff. Just awesome, man. We'll make sure. I want to make sure we get back around to your book too before we end. I want to make sure everybody knows where to go get it. Buy me a coffee. Buy me a coffee. Buy me a coffee. Buy me a coffee / what is the innovation?
It's buymeacoffee.com / inner voice J.
Yeah.
As in the letter J.
We're gonna have to go back and save that comment again so we can make sure that people go out there and support. Like you love Archive Live, go ahead and go grab that book. Grab that book. Grab those books. Let me see here. And I want to thank everybody for the awesome questions here tonight as we're filling in for Dave Scott. And you guys have been great so far. Do appreciate everyone out there. Let's see here.
I'm jealous. Peppa's got bacon break. I don't have any bacon.
Yeah, bacon would be good. Bacon would be good. I saw someone yesterday put in the chat they had just had some of that thick apple smoked bacon. I'm like, that's the kind I like. I like the really thick bacon, man. I don't like my bacon crispy.
Oh, me either.
Yeah. No. It's blasphemous. That was Peppa H. Peppa H. I want some of that thick apple smoked bacon you were talking about last night. Peppa H is about to have a ball right now. Shout out to Peppa H. And thanks for coming in. I didn't say hi to you earlier. I didn't see you. So thank you for doing that, coming on in. CS dropping the first super chat of the night, saying great show. Appreciate your support and your love for the show, CS. That is awesome that you went ahead and made sure that that super chat was working here on this channel. And it does seem to be because CS just dropped a 5 on us. And we do appreciate you as always, CS. Glad that we can sit here and do this show as we're doing. And yep, Julie reposted the link, and let me tag that so we can bring it back up as well later on. But it's on the screen, guys. buymeacoffee.com / inner voice J. This is where you can find Arke stuff. Make sure you go out there and support, and definitely just, like I said, it's cool, and I look at this for everybody out there. Everybody gets interviewed, right? And there's a standard set of interview questions, but it's cool to get to know the person. And I think the person is really what matters, right? I think at the end of the day, it's like, how did you come to this point to be the Arke Andrews, right? And I think there's value in people who really follow you.
I definitely agree with you from that.
Yeah. So it is definitely awesome. And are you going to Vegas this year, Arke? You coming out to the thing or no?
The short answer is I'd love to, but unfortunately finances will not accommodate.
I got you. I got you because I'm really on the edge of that now.
Because I'm barely keeping a roof over my head right now.
I got you.
So that kind of has to take dominant priority.
No, for sure. Yeah. Partying can wait. Business first, party later. Business first, party later. That's why we got to make sure we sell millions.
On the plus side, my fiance is coming out here.
She's coming down
to
see
would
you.
Be appreciated.
Yeah, that is awesome. She's awesome.
She'll be down here from the 5th to the 20th.
Kira, I met her, guys. She is awesome. She is definitely awesome. You guys are definitely meant for each other, man. You guys are 2 peas in a pod. You guys just work so well together. So it's awesome to hear you guys got engaged. And I didn't get to congratulate you on that actually yet, since you've done that, taken that next step. So congratulations on the engagement, Arke Andrews.
Well, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm definitely looking forward to it.
I was in the chat when I heard Dave say it, and I was like, oh man, shout out to Arke, but now I get to say it to you directly. So awesome stuff. Love is a beautiful thing.
It is. And the reality is, from my standpoint, simple. It's like I told her, lie to me, we're going to end up having a problem in the end, in the long run. I've helped people put relationships back together where fidelity has been a problem. I warned her right off the bat. That never happens, and I know it won't. But if it ever happens, that would be the end of it.
And that's fair. That's fair because trust is key. You can't violate trust, and I'm that way too. Truthfully, I'll give you benefit of the doubt going up front. That's just anybody, not just in a relationship, just period. Then you violate trust, and it's hard to reconcile that, right? And that's just
Yeah.
that's just being a real person. You know what I mean? So that I could totally understand that for sure. As we got about 10 seconds here before we come back from break.
Absolutely.
5 seconds, and here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition. That means I'm filling in for Dave Scott tonight. Once again, filling in big shoes, talking to the Arke Andrews, and we're getting into some really good stuff. Getting to know the man behind the message, the man behind the books. Once again, you guys can pick up his books, buymeacoffee.com/Inner Voice J. Make sure you guys go out there and support as well as we go ahead, jump back into the show and actually jump right back into some of your questions here. Let's see. I do see one from Peppa H. Peppa H has said, if disclosure, what race would we see first? Awesome.
I have no way of telling you that because it's going to vary from one person to the next. I can tell you that you're most likely to run into either the Mobians or the Gedefni. Okay, Mobians are literally Earthlings from 50,000 years ago that colonized another planet. Okay, so you wouldn't even, you may well see them now. The Gedefni are what you know as the Nords. They look human, just a lot bigger. But those are your most likely, the reason being, you don't want to be meeting the Udina to start with. If you watch the movie Arrival, the big helipods with the 7 tentacles,
oh yeah,
these are real people. You don't want to be seeing these walking down the street.
No.
People will panic.
Yeah. I have bad juju, bad feelings from those things. Also, the things from the species from the movie Signs as well. I don't know what those are, but I don't want to run into those either.
I'm going to have to go back and take a look at it. I saw Signs decades ago. I haven't watched it, so I really
and I do something called on my other show. I do something called where we show the movie. Basically, it's science fiction to science fact movie edition, and Signs was one of them, because the thing is that a lot of people have come into this moment where they're just considering the fact that extraterrestrials are real, and so it's like, okay, now that you know this and you've studied and you looked into this, if you go back and watch one of those movies like Signs or any of the other ones out there, then you kind of see it through a different lens, because it's possible. It's very possible the stuff you're seeing now.
Well, in Race of the Worlds, I've actually got a list, and I'll send you the list. As a matter of fact, I can read it to you, of various movies that I've seen that I can tell you what race they are. Not by the name they're using, but by the one I know them by.
Yeah, I'd like to. So when you do watch Signs, and we talk again, I'm going to ask you that, because I'd like to know. Seems like somebody knows something, but Izzy Beth is asking, Arke, could you explain your view or understanding of what is described as enlightenment for humans?
Presuming we're referring to what the off-worlders see it, it's when humans finally realize that, number one, regardless of your color or any of the other ways that you guys have figured out how to separate yourselves, humans are one species. And the only people that are going to straighten out the mess that is on Earth, that is Earth civilization, is the common people. Not the elites, not the governments, not the spiritual guides. And certainly not God or the off-worlders, or the ancient races for that matter. That is in your guys' hands. Okay, when you figure this out, and you figure out you actually have the ability to heal every one of the illnesses your body creates, that is where they start seeing it as enlightenment. Prior to that, it's usually classified as ego.
Tell me about that. Let's see. We also have Susan Ahern, the happy medium, is asking, Keith, what were you like as a little kid?
Very, very withdrawn. Did a lot of the dead fish routine. I was epileptic. Didn't have friends to speak of. I had a few that I had as friends, but I was always isolated from people. I never did connect with them. You know, growing up in what amounts to the Bible Belt, in a city where everybody was pretty much either religious or rock and roll. I was country. You know, and of course, being epileptic, I couldn't get into any of the sports. You know, so I was very much a recluse. And of course, talking to people I could do if they were male. If you were female, I wouldn't say 2 words out of my mouth until you opened yours. I was absolutely, simply put, terrified of talking to girls.
Yeah, they can be very intimidating. They can definitely be intimidating. So I do understand that, especially being young. Peppa H says Keith would be my best friend. He would, Peppa H, because I'm telling you, you guys are seeing him through the screen. You meet our Keith, which is, if we ever get together again like this, you definitely should come out so you can meet him in person. He's a really good guy, really cool guy, and I can vouch for that. Because I shook the man's hand, and he's really a good dude. So I can see that, Peppa H. And let me see, who else do we have? Do we have another question here? This is one I saved this way earlier because I think you touched on this, but somebody wanted to know as you were telling the story earlier. You walked out of the morgue. Are you able to go into that?
At this point in my life, yes. The short answer, because it's a long drawn out process, it took literally, well, I don't know how many days it took, but I ended up dead in the morgue. When I woke up, I actually thought I woke up in the barracks on a military base. I told my father looks at me and goes, "Oh, I know the morgue you're talking about." I said, "Dad, it was barracks." He goes, "No, it was a morgue." Mm-hmm. I sat up. Like I came to, and I had a blanket a white sheet over my head. I thought I was just sleeping under a sheet. So I pushed it aside. Now I understand I'm only 5 years old in a smock, in a hospital smock. I sat up, pushed the sheet aside, and I'm looking around. There's 30, 40 other beds here, and 3/4 of them are full. So I swung my legs off the bed and hopped off. Well, the first thing that crossed my mind was, gee, that was a long drop from a bed. The second thing was this guy in the lab coat. I'm looking at him going, why didn't you pick one of the empty beds? And why didn't you take your lab coat off? So I didn't think much of it. I'm 5 years old. I spotted the door and went, I'm going that way. Pushed the swinging door open, and I looked to the left. It was dark down there, so I didn't want to go there. So I looked to the right. There was a ramp going up. I toddled up it, through another swing, another two-way door. And here's a military man sitting there on the stool, and he looks at me and he pulls his feet in. And the blonde girl in the security chamber leans out and she's looking at me. I'm toddling off down the hall. Needless to say, as you know, hospital smocks don't have a back end. So here I am, 5 years old, walking into the lobby. Mom and Dad are in each other's arms, and I hear the doctor clear as a bell. I'm sorry, we lost him. Well, being 5 years old, I walked up and pulled up on Dad's pant leg. He looks down at me, and I looked up, and I says, who'd you lose? That day, they stopped calling me Ronald. As near as I can figure, they had just been told Ronald died. So they immediately started calling me by Keith, my middle name. But you got to be dead a long time to get to the morgue. And by the way, I don't recommend trying to beat my record.
Yeah, and I've seen videos of, you know, that happening to other people actually in other countries, which is bananas. You know, with that being said, let me ask you this, Keith. I don't know if I've ever heard you answer this question before. As we look back in humanity's history, and we know that there were civilizations that reached a certain point of technological advancement potentially, and then they fell off the face of the earth. It seems like, what is your perspective on what happened to those civilizations as they reached their peak and then seemingly went away after that? What do you think actually happened?
Well, a couple of things happened. Okay, depending on the civilization. When you look at the Egyptian civilization, the Ennead arrived. You know them as the Egyptian gods. They know them like the Ennead know themselves as the Ennead. Okay, they arrived, and because they were so far advanced, mankind looked at it and went, "Oh, you're gods," and they started worshiping them. Well, the Ennead went about trying to guide humans, using humans' understanding to try and get things built. But did they work with, say, a combination of slavery and volunteers to build the pyramids? Absolutely. But buried under the pyramids is technology that people will be able to eventually understand. Right now, I wouldn't hold my breath. Okay. But the consortium, they got in here and went, guys, you're not gods. Now, the consortium forbids another species to step in and take the mantle of God. Okay. There is, quite seriously, and you're going to love this one, there is only one actual God, but it was two what humans would call gods that put Earth together. Okay. Now, the Atlanteans, number one, they weren't actually called Atlanteans. They were asked when they got here, you know, where are you from? They said, we're from the Atlantia. Okay, it was a ship, 13 ships in all, but the Atlantia ran into a problem and they had to set down. They sat down, the Atlantia itself landed right on top of where the Bimini Island wreckage is. The people have said, there's the remnants. Well, the remnants you're looking at are essentially the launch columns that were supposed to be used to get back off the planet. Okay, so of course they collapsed when there was a complication, and literally there was sabotage that caused it. Now we go back to the Roman gods, the Norse god, the Roman, the Norse, and the Greek gods. Okay, as I said, the Gadafni, all the same people. They live longer than mankind. They do live on Mount Olympus. They were not questioning. They weren't misleading people. Problem was Mount Olympus wasn't on Earth. So of course, again, the Gaddafi or the consortium showed up and went, guys, you're not gods. Go home. And net result, you have the Greek gods, the Roman gods, and the Norse gods all of a sudden gone. But that triggered the religious people, like the religious contacts, if you will, stepping in and saying, hey, I'm speaking on behalf of the gods. And this has continued to this day. You take a look at every one of the religions, and I literally mean all the way from Buddhism through Christianity, all the way to the Church of Satan and the so-called ancient religions, the pagans. They all teach the same thing. They just use different names.
We have, as human beings, it seems like that and I'll just use it. So looking at past civilizations, we all took a similar path as far as evolution in the building materials that we use. We eventually used stone. We used stone structures for housing. We still do that today, but we use concrete, right? It seems like we've kind of elevated how we are, how our path is going. We're kind of altering it as well. But the one thing it seems like is built into maybe the human instinct is to eventually go off planet, even though we can't fly as human beings. We can't unless we're in a plane, obviously, but we're not naturally built to be in the sky. However,
Yes,
we have ambitions to go there, and we have
we
ambitions
got
to
the
leave the
capacity
planet.
to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Every human, if you take a look at any of the religions, they'll tell you the same thing, and they're accurate. Every one of you has the capacity to develop flight, i.e., the Superman stunt. Okay, it's a literal matter of mind over body or mind over matter. You simply have to modify your molecular density to be able to make it happen. This is doable. Have you ever heard the term, and again, my background is Christian, my understanding a little bit more developed, but have you ever heard the term God made everyone in their image?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's inside and outside. Okay, but the imagination is the key to making this happen. We just have to realize that just because you're born in a different place, you're not that different from each other.
I flew in my dream and it seemed very, very real, and I was able to replicate it every single time. And so I can actually understand that, Arke. That makes a lot of sense. Let me see here. With that being said, we have Peppa H asking, I've heard of bases on the moon. Are they ours or alien?
Well, I could go yes. Mankind has a docking spot there that is for human docking. But the moon, the so-called dark side of the moon, trust me, is a lot brighter than you might think. But that is a waste. It's a interstellar waste station. It's also where all of the incoming races have to check in and get permission to come down to Earth to do their examination. Now, understand, I know humans do not like being abducted. I'm one of the ones that didn't like being abducted. Okay, but they are, humans don't ask the tiger or the fish if they can catch them and tag them with a tracker. They don't ask the plants, oh, is it okay if we splice you with another plant? This is the biggest complication we have in comprehending alien motivation.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And Julie Farrell asked a question here saying the Titans before them, question mark.
Also known as the Anunnaki.
Anunnaki.
Now, the Anunnaki, they did not build their ships. Okay. They actually got members of the consortium to do it because the Anunnaki went, we are way too big to function with these little people that are evolving. So we already know out there it's a lot bigger. We want to go out there. So they got the consortium to build them ships to get them off, to get them off the planet. This is why you're finding these giant skeletons that have like a 10-foot skull. Okay, these are Anunnaki. And no, by the way, yes, they are coming back. No, they are not coming back to walk amongst you. You realize the mess that would make? But they are coming back to see how civilization handled itself.
Have you ever CE5 before yourself?
I keep getting lost on what a CE5 is.
Just the summoning of craft, the bringing craft in with your mind, with your consciousness.
I don't bother. I figure they come and talk to me often enough. Why bother disturbing them?
Yeah, what I'm trying to get to is like, is there a time where you think, and I would ask this of anybody with the ability to contact extraterrestrial, what would be the thing it would take to have one of these things just show up, basically at your request, essentially, right? So not necessarily even CE5, but just maybe through some sort of communication. What would be the thing that would make them show up and say, hey, land right here, let's have a conversation, come out, let's have a conversation? What do you think that would take, and is that even possible for us to make happen?
Well, theoretically, is it possible? The answer is yes. For me to do it, the odds are slim to non-existent. Because what it would take is my bearing witness, quite seriously, and this sounds really egocentric, but it would take my seeing civilization start treating people as though they're decent, as though everybody has value. Okay, and until that happens, bringing somebody down into a place where humans on the whole go, shoot first, then ask if they're friendly. I don't see the point to it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm an extreme recluse in a lot of ways. You know, I do this. I don't leave my house much.
I'm looking at this like, right, and this is probably how they look at us. They probably, as far as weaponry go, have such advanced tech as far as that goes that they could really do away with us all. But that physical confrontation, it feels like, just by descriptions of a lot of these things, if it were hand-to-hand combat with one of these things, we probably destroy them. And so it
Not
just
even
makes...
close.
Okay, what do you mean?
Hand-to-hand combat will be a little drawn out. But understand something really important. You take a Strazazian, 7.5 to 8.5 foot tall. They grow their own armor. And sad to say, some races grow laser ablative armor.
Okay.
Then you've got races that they grow their own weapons. Okay. Or I like the ones like the ancient races that literally can point their finger at you and fire off a fireball.
Yeah.
Hand-to-hand combat is not something you want to do with most of these people. Now, granted, the Greys, if you would go hand-to-hand with one that wasn't in a armor suit, yeah, they're weak. You know, when you take a look at the Gleespar, they're tiny little guys. They're not much combat. But you don't want to go to war because nobody sends your little cannon fodder. Humans send cannon fodder. These guys send shock troops.
Okay. Wow.
You know, I mean,
That
you
makes
think
sense.
about it, mankind's got a great ego for that. But think about it. One Anunnaki can flatten a city before you can cause him to bleed.
That makes sense. That makes sense, Arke. I'm just looking at, and I'm probably just thinking about Greys because they're so frail and wispy that we'd probably do away with them just hand to hand. But and I'm just trying to figure out why they wouldn't just come down. What the fear would be if they have the upper hand as far as weaponry wise, and then also physical strength wise. Like why they wouldn't just show up without being afraid of us.
That's because of the consortium rules. It is forbidden for them to come down and disrupt a civilization that is developing, because in order for mankind to become a member of the consortium, they must evolve past the idea of self-devastation to a unified one world government. Not a dictatorship, guys.
Conversations
that
awesome
move
stuff,
the
Arke.
Listening
I
to
appreciate
After
you coming in.
Hours
Do you
Mr.
want to hang
Rob
around
G
for 15 more
on the
minutes?
only place where
Yeah,
you
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. We'll be
Spaced Out
right back
Radio.
with
Spaced
Arke
Out
Andrews
Radio.
right after this break.
Tuned your dial to the right frequency.
We got Arke for another 15 at least. Let's make it interesting. We'll see you guys right back here after the commercial break. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Space Out Radio after hour number 3. We got Arke going the extra mile with this here. We're coming back in about 10 seconds. So don't you move a muscle. Here we go. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Space Out Radio, the after hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We are going the extra mile here with Arke Andrews. He's going to be taking a look at something different tonight. I won't even spoil it yet, but make sure that if you miss any of the conversation, you jump in the archive, youtube.com/at Space Out Radio. The options are endless. The options are endless. As we go ahead and get ready to jump back into the conversation here, I had something, Arke, I wanted to bring up. And I wanted, this is basically something called an alien timeline. And I've referenced this on some research that I've done, and I kind of want to just see. I don't know if you're able to see this very well. There are essentially someone, Joe Nichols, I'm assuming, has listed extraterrestrials and drawn images of them, sketches of all the reports, or mainly most of the big reports that have happened going back to Roswell, looks like. So I wanted to see if you recognize any of these species, or if you could point to some of these. And let me make this bigger and try to move this out the way here. Let me move this bar here. And for the radio
I had
audience,
to move it onto my second so I could see it.
okay, let me move the banner here. Okay.
Okay.
So, and let me see here. So, are you able to see those? Okay, here we go. Let me see. Did that zoom in for you? Oh, it's not zooming in on your end. Hold on once.
No, but I've got it big enough I can see most of it. I'm looking over here because this is my bigger monitor.
Let me do this. Let me do it this way. Actually, I think there's a better way I can do this. Hold on. I think I can share the screen and then do it this way. Okay, so you're able to see it that way. Okay, and then what I'll do is I will zoom in on it.
Okay.
All right, and let me see. 1 second here. I want to try to scroll. Okay, let me at least make it this big, a little bigger. All right, so any of these extraterrestrials, are you able to? Let me see if I can drag it down. Okay, there we go. All right, this is better. Okay. So this is starting, and I'll kind of describe this for the radio audience out there. Let me see how it looks on the show. Okay, great. All right, so I wanted to see, Arke. So this is starting in Roswell, Little Green Men. Going to 1955, the Kelly, Kentucky Goblin. That
Okay.
type of extraterrestrial. Have you seen or do you know anything about this type? Because the reason why I even came to this is I was doing research on extraterrestrial video where this extraterrestrial had these floppy ears, and I hadn't known of any described species that matched that. And I went to this list and I found the Kelly, Kentucky Goblin. Are you familiar with this type of extraterrestrial? And if so, like what would you say about it?
Well, number one, I'm just trying to look it up because I believe I've got that in volume 2. I just want to give you the accurate information on it, if I've got it there.
Definitely. And for the radio, it's a sort of silver-toned extraterrestrial with the big floppy ears. If you go back and read on the Kellysville, Kentucky Goblin, you'll see the whole story. These extraterrestrials approached the house and terrorized the family for a whole night. It was about 10 of them. They were all on the roof. They tried to come through the windows and the doors. Very, very creepy encounter. And I actually saw a video of what looked like one of these things. This was also covered in the Hellier series, if you're familiar with that. They went out looking for the Kentucky Goblin as well. And
Well,
I just think it's unique as far as the way that it looks, as these big, pointy, floppy ears, big, bulbous eyes, and one silver tone to the skin. And if you've seen anything like that, and if not, that's okay, because there's a bunch of other ones here. And are there any on this list that kind of stick out to you?
well, let me blow that back up to full size. Number one, the 55 people. You're looking at Berondi, but they're not an alien. They're an ancient race.
Okay,
They're
which
called-
which one are you looking at?
1955, the guy with the big ears.
Oh, okay, yes, that's the one I'm asking about. So, what did you say
Yeah.
about that guy?
Well, number one, that's the Berondi, or at least that's what I know them as.
Okay, what are the characteristics of that type of extraterrestrial?
Well, number one, they're, silver works. That's usually their clothing. They're actually grayish in color, possibly silver, depending on how you look at it. They're only 1 to 3 feet tall. Okay. Yeah. But they come from off-world. They did settle on Earth. And they are currently living underground in what you would call either inner or middle Earth.
Yeah. I mean, and that's real. That's actually perfect, Arke, because these things have been rumored. If you want to, go by what they said on Hellier, that these things potentially are living in the caves of Kentucky, and they potentially are underground. So that's actually an awesome call out. And in the Kentucky Goblin story from 1955, these things were reported to be no taller than about 3 to 4 feet tall. And it was just, pretty crazy the way that these things approach the house. And the other thing that stood out with me for one of these extraterrestrials is that they didn't have the ability, it seemed like, to just materialize through doors. They physically could not get through windows and doors without actually being let in, which was another, I think, unique characteristic that you don't really hear when it comes to extraterrestrials. Usually they can just show up in your room is how they're reported, but these ones, the family kept them out and fought them off, shooting at them all throughout the night, and then they finally were able to run out and go to the police department.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were pretty creepy.
To me. I should point out that I don't research any of this, and this is why I say I think I question my own sanity. And then something like this comes up. I got the information on the Berondi. I never had any knowledge about this 55 abduction.
Yes, and that's exactly what I wanted to show the audience, is that that where you just pulled that from, you were totally completely accurate on that, and I don't feel that you had the prior information as far as the case. So that's actually pretty awesome, in a call out to what it is that you do, Arke. So that's actually awesome. And I'm just asking, but that's the one I really wanted to know about, because I've done some studying on that, and I think that one stands out from a lot of the others. But do you see any on this list that are ones that you may be familiar with in some shape or form?
If you go 47, number one, those would be, that's not a good drawing of it, by the way, but those, and by the look of those, I would say you're looking at your Zeta Reticulum D, which are your controller class scientists.
All right. For the radio audience, these are listed as little green men. They're depicted as potentially, I'm assuming it doesn't say, but maybe what the Roswell beings. Let's see here. What is this? Have you heard of anything like here in 1954? The little furry guy looks like an Ewok.
Oh, the Caldor. Calling them hairy dwarf, well, yeah, you could. Although I do have the other ones now, they look like the Caldor, okay, But the Ewok, as it were, and that's not the name. I've got to go back through in one of my files. I've got the information on what you know as the Ewok. Very real people, not really nice. The people are carnivores. You know, they look cute and cuddly. I wouldn't recommend going to dinner.
Yeah, yeah. And see, I think when you look at this list also, I think this is where, you have a lot of people that talk about cryptids and then you have also aliens and then these as being two separate things. But, this list, once again, is a list that was put together by, I'm assuming, this guy, Joe Nickel, and it depicts descriptions of contact over a period of years, and it looks like some of these things could be considered cryptids, like the hairy thing, right? Would be what do you I think those are called puck wudgies or something along those lines. Like
I've heard that name before. That's not what I call them.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've got the information on them.
And I think what I'm trying to say is that it may show, if these are the type of things that are being reported as extraterrestrial, and they also take on a cryptid sort of appearance, then maybe that kind of, combines the fact that cryptid, extraterrestrial may be more closely related or have more in common as far as, than we think they are, that they're not actually two separate categories, that they may just be one and the same, and they're all out there, or they may all be considered aliens coming from some other place or dimension or timeline. And that's kind of what I wanted to point out. So anything else on this list? I'm gonna kind of scroll down. These are the 50s. Let's see here. Another one that may stand out here. What about this Cyclops guy?
Oh,
1963.
Yeah, 1963. That is the cyclopean aspect. Absolutely, but they are a smaller race of the Anunnaki. A lot more violent, but they are a real individual. And again, the Anunnaki evolved on Earth and left.
Okay. All right.
I keep on blanks. This is why I write stuff down, is my memory on occasion is a scramble. Where are we here? Of course. Okay, now, looking down a little further, you look at 1958, what you call a blob.
Right. I was going to ask you about that next.
Also known as a Corlock. Now, you remember the movie Space Odyssey 2001?
Yes.
That ship is real. But here's the kicker. No human will ever be on board a Corlock ship. Because the Corlock ship is built in layers that are literally only an inch, maybe an inch and a half separating. Because it's run on bioelectricity generated by the Corlock themselves. Corlocks don't have an actual physical form. They're basically 160-pound amoeba.
Okay. All right. Let me see here. Let me see if we have. What else do we have on this list here? We have, let's see, we have the blob was definitely one I wanted to ask you about. Obviously, Betty and Barney Hill appears to be in 1961, appears to be the classic gray alien. Same thing with Betty Andreessen. Okay, what about these insectoids? 1972.
Oh, wait a minute. You've got proboscis on that. That's not a clay clock. That is a Fuentiran.
Okay, for the radio audience.
Well, whatever you do, don't shake these guys' hands. Their stomach is on their forearm. And they literally, they'll hold your hand and then they fold the stomach over your hand, dissolve your hand. And that proboscis they use, they have they stick into their own stomach to drink the decomposed body.
And for the radio audience, this is an insectoid. You can look it up. It doesn't say what case this was tied to, but it looks just like your standard 6-leg beetle or bug or something along those lines. What about this thing next to 1975? The thing with the arms in the air looks like a furry thing.
Oh, that would be, I suspect very strongly, that is what you know as a Sasquatch.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
This,
I would be inclined to think that's what that is. The artwork is, well, it's better than I can do.
yeah. But it's cartoonish. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's not probably 1-to-1, but are you talking about the second from the right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm talking about the guy with his arms over his head.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. And then also, yeah, anything else on this list that stands out to you?
Well, I will tell you the one in 75, the Walton one, those are Zeta Reticulans, the Greys.
The Travis Walton extraterrestrial. And that's the thing. You see over time, and this is a once again for the radio audience, Joe Nichols alien timeline. If you Google it, you'll see exactly what we're looking at, and it's a sheet from 1947 going pretty close to current day, and just showing different depictions of beings that have been described in different encounters over the years. What about the and it also looks like that, yeah, the gray comes up here and there, over the timeline, which and more so than other extraterrestrials, which makes it seem like the grays are probably more prevalent than other species. Is that true?
Oh, that's very true. It's not so much they're more prevalent as they're more known because they're the ones that are working on the hybridization program.
Okay, so those are the ones more likely to have an encounter with based on that fact. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. What let's see here. It's just more of the same. What about this reptilian versus a lizard man? Is there a difference, or is that one and the same as well?
Well, let me put it this way. I know of and have documented somewhere close to a dozen what we call reptilian. Okay. Now, reptilian and lizard man are probably, and that's just a extrapolation, if you will. They're probably simply two different forms of reptilian. I've seen both. Okay. But there are many, like I said, I've identified somewhere close to a dozen. Some of which are off-world, some of which aren't.
Okay, that is pretty awesome. And let's see here. Any other really weird ones? Yeah, I wish I had more context on the backstory of some of these here. Okay, so would you, well, what is your outlook on cryptids versus aliens? Is it like, there's been some conversation about Bigfoot being seen at the same time as orbs, and then potentially around the same time as a UFO sighting. And I had somebody tell me, they gave me a pretty awesome example or theory essentially on why that might be the reason why you might see Sasquatch when you're seeing UFOs. Someone said to me that it's possible that these Sasquatch are present in order to keep you away from the business that the aliens might be conducting in the forest. For instance, if you come to them, if you see one in the forest, then likely somewhere else there in the area there's essentially a UFO landed and extraterrestrials are handling some sort of business, and the Sasquatch ends up being like a protector or a defender of these extraterrestrials. Have you heard of that? And does that make any sense?
I've heard of it.
Related?
and I mean, this is going to sound really rude, but I'm not known for being subtle. But when people start talking about the Sasquatch being the security guard for UFOs or being seen around them, understand it is a good bet. If you see a crow, you'll see a cat somewhere nearby, or you might see a worm. Okay. The fact is, the Sasquatch are not from anything I've ever seen, protectors of anybody except Itza herself. Now, on the other hand, the Wara, which look very similar to a Sasquatch, are a very viable protector, but they aren't Sasquatch.
Okay. Do you think that there's any relation at all between where extraterrestrials come from? Maybe just some of the species, not all extraterrestrials, obviously, but the ones that might be considered interdimensional, because some people will say Sasquatch is also potentially stepping in from another dimension. So is it possible that they interact in some sort of way, or do you think they're just two separate things that don't ever cross each other?
Number one, the fact that you're calling it possible, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
It is possible. However, I run into a problem with the extra dimensional. Higher vibratory, capable of shifting out of the visual cortex of humans, very likely and very doable. I know people that can do it. Okay. But what you're talking about them coming from another dimension, as I said earlier, everything you ever see in any sense on or around Earth is third dimensional. It's just some can vibrate so fast you can't see them. The Thinginan are an obvious example, but the Thinginan are not an off-world race. They're an ancient one. They just evolved down a different path.
Okay. So then, do you think that if they exist here in the same dimension as us, do you feel like is it just something? And you said the vibration moving too fast, so I think you could equate that to, like being outside of our spectrum, outside of our visual capability, right? So if we had some special kind of glasses that we could put on, do you feel like we would see all these things like here in our present?
A lot of them, in all likelihood, yes. Okay. Would you believe you saw them? Probably not.
Well,
okay. I mean, you think about it. Take a look at the propeller. Okay. Even on a boat, you can see the propeller. You can see the blades. Now, turn the propeller on and get it moving at full throttle. You're not going to see the individual blades.
Yes.
It essentially vanishes.
That makes a lot of sense, and kind of what I was talking about, because the thing is and just trying to reconcile, the fact that people will see these things, some people don't, but then the people that do see them, they will say things like they disappear, and it's just a wonder on why they're able to see them for that moment or in that moment, and that makes a lot of sense. Like even with the propeller, with it spinning so fast, if you look at it a certain way, then you can see the propeller. But if you just gaze at it, for instance, you won't see the propeller. So that makes a lot of sense. And that's actually a great analogy there. With that being said, man, I appreciate you staying on this extra segment. I think we did some awesome stuff tonight, Arke. Definitely outside the box. Definitely Arke that you've never seen Arke before. And what I want to make sure that we do, because we have 30 seconds left, is bring up where you can get your book again. Guys, Arke has books. Make sure you guys go out and support Arke Andrews. buymeacoffee.com/inner voice J. Arke, do you have anything that you want to leave the audience with here before we wrap up?
I still have my own YouTube channel, Arke Andrews, and I'm on that from usually starting 9 p.m. Pacific. But that's on YouTube. So absolutely drop by.
Guys, Arke is awesome as always. Hope you guys enjoyed Arke tonight. I do appreciate you, Arke. We shall talk again, sir. You have a great rest of your night, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much there, Rob. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Yeah.
All right, and we will be right back in 5 minutes here. Once again, shout out to Arke Andrews for being awesome. Yeah, great stuff. We're going to come back with Tales Untold, Mispersed Mysteries with Steve Stockton, do some UFO news, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. Arke Andrews being awesome as always. Once again, make sure you go buy his book. Support Arke Andrews. Buy me a coffee /Inner Voice J. The books look good. The artwork looks great. The ideas behind the stories that he told us here, all the elements that he has wrapped up in those books sounds really good. Science fiction that potentially could one day be a reality, also a great angle. I think there's a lot there. I was totally unaware Arke even had books, that he was an author. So I'm so glad that we were able to promote that, and I'll make sure that we keep doing that here throughout the show. Once again, shout out to Arke Andrews for being an awesome dude. And let's see here. And his YouTube channel right here, guys, which is youtube.com for our radio. Well, we're on break, so they won't hear it, but youtube.com /@Arke Andrews 6716. Make sure is the question mark part of it? I believe it's just Arke Andrews 6716. So youtube.com /@Arke Andrews 6716. Make sure you go and support, show the love over there, give him a subscribe. Next time he goes live, hit him up in the chat, tell him you saw him on this show tonight. Tell him thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, great stuff. I'm happy with it. I am so happy with that. And let's see. Now we can address this. Bomber at Spaced Out Radio, Robbie Sweets. This is the strangest hockey game I've watched all week. So I'm on stage today, right? Filling in for Dave Scott. Normally, if this were coming from a Canadian perspective, we might be bringing up hockey tonight. We might be talking about hockey, or we might be talking about Timbits or other Canadian things. Tonight, we're going to talk about American things. How about that? Let's talk about baseball. Let's talk about football. Well, my team sucks, so I don't know that I really want to talk about football, but let's talk about baseball. Spring training is happening here. San Francisco Giants fan all day. Shout out to Dave Scott in San Francisco right now as we speak. San Francisco Giants fan. I hope he gets to see the ballpark. Beautiful ballpark right on the bay right there, right under the Bay Bridge. Very nice American sport baseball is. Basketball. Another great American sport. What else do we have? I even said cornhole. Cornhole is even something I think is better than hockey. Let's see. I get to talk bad about hockey tonight. That is awesome. Hockey sucks. Hockey's not a sport. You can't get in the United States with a hockey puck or a hockey stick. That's considered contraband. We don't let you in the country with that sort of stuff. What else? Let me see here. This is for Bomber, specifically for Bomber. This is for Bomber. Because she called me Robbie Sweets, the Sweet Robbie Skates, or something like that. Something crazy. Something bananas. Yeah, I got my Americans got my back here. Americans got my back here. I hope they packed his Hockey Sucks t-shirt at least. coming to California. Let's see what else. What other derogatory thing could I say about hockey? Air hockey's better. Hockey is essentially figure skating and barroom brawling mixed in one. Hockey's very boring. I think I got it out my system. I think I got it out. We got about 10 seconds before we come back here. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition. I'm filling in for Dave Scott tonight, and it's been awesome. Arke Andrews, uncut. Arke Andrews as you never seen them before. This show tonight, if you missed any of it, hop in our archive. It doesn't cost a dime. It's absolutely free. YouTube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. As we get ready to jump right back into the show, last half hour here, and we are going to get into some Steve Stockton Tales Untold Missing Person Mysteries as I go ahead and get this all set up. And we'll hear from Steve Stockton right now because we appreciate that he's a part of this show. Normally you'd hear Swamp Dweller, but with the After Hours Radio Show edition, you get Steve Stockton. So here we go.
Welcome to Tales Untold and Missing Persons Mysteries on Spaced Out Radio's After Hours. My name is Steve Stockton, and I'm here to take you on a journey of mysteries, legends, and true stories. Come, join me on this strange adventure of Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries. Conrad Whitlock. Conrad Whitlock was 72 years old at the time of his disappearance on July 28, 2019. He vanished under mysterious circumstances after telling his wife that night at around 8:30 in the evening, right before he retired for the night and went to bed, that he wouldn't see her in the morning because he had to go and get some tests done early. Conrad had recently been suffering from headaches and was presumably going to get it checked out. Just before 3 a.m. on the 29th, the E-tag on Conrad's BMW was detected on the Marunda Highway on the way to Victoria's High Country. 3 hours later, he drove through the entrance gate at the Mount Buller Resort, which was witnessed by several other motorists who all claimed to have seen Conrad himself behind the wheel. Approximately 7 hours after he left his home in the middle of the night, seemingly with no destination or reason in mind, at 10 a.m., his car was found abandoned on the side of the road, and Conrad had seemingly vanished right into the ether. He hasn't been seen or heard from since. When she woke in the morning and couldn't get a hold of her husband, Conrad's wife, Mandy, called the police and expressed her concerns to them. Then they tracked his phone to Mount Buller, and there his car would be found abandoned and empty, with the keys still in the ignition. After what was described as an exhaustive 6-day search effort conducted to try and locate the missing elderly man, who up till now had shown no signs of dementia or other mental illness, there seemed to be no rhyme or reason why he left his home when he did or drove the route he did, just to end up abandoning his car haphazardly parked on the side of this isolated road. The rescue effort included police, Mount Buller search and rescue specialists, forestry workers, a dog squad, and an air wing. Dozens of searchers and volunteers combed the area where Mr. Whitlock's BMW was found, but it was all to no avail, as no other trace of him has ever been found. The overnight temperatures in the area at that time were dropping to -3 degrees Celsius or 37.4 degrees Fahrenheit, and it had started to snow. It's believed he had no provisions with him at all and was definitely not equipped for such harsh weather. The coroner stated that because of certain things going on in the world at that time, the pandemic, NSW cadaver dogs weren't able to join the search until months after Conrad had initially gone missing. Peter Towner, a former Victoria police detective who worked on the case, said at the time, "It was a long delay, and that, I think, has compounded the fact that we didn't find him. I don't think we'll ever find him." Coroner Parisa Spanos asked Mr. Towner, "We're about 15 months after the event. Do you know if the cadaver dogs would be expected to find a trace?" His response was, "They were quite confident that if he was there, they would have found him. I wouldn't say they were unsuccessful. They just didn't find him. He wasn't where they searched." It was later discovered that just a few days before he disappeared seemingly into thin air, Conrad was participating in a practice session at a racetrack with his Mustang when he crashed into a barrier. Now, it's alleged that he didn't hit his head, but later witnesses came forward and said that he had a large bruise on his forehead after the incident. This is when his wife says he first started complaining of severe headaches. It was also uncovered by investigators that, right before he vanished, Mr. Whitlock had been searching on his computer for things like amnesia and memory loss. The lapsed Scientologist was even searching about his previous religion with a search of the word Scientology. Mr. Tober believes Conrad's head injuries could be the cause of his disappearance and believes he could have become confused and disoriented when he woke up around 3 a.m. and decided to get into his car for whatever reason and go for a drive. He stated, "My personal opinion is the bang on his head manifested in his mind that he had an underlying serious brain embolism or something like that." Conrad was also recently prescribed what was referred to as a powerful painkiller, which was never found and was presumably on his person when he went missing. The investigators say that all this combined with high altitudes, freezing cold temperatures, and the fact that he hadn't eaten would definitely account for why he most likely succumbed to the elements. Mr. Towner, who now works for the Victoria Police but in the capacity as a public servant since retiring, also stated you could simply slide under a log, under a fern, and you could literally walk straight over top of him and not know there was a body there. He also states he became drowsy and disoriented, and I simply believe he wandered off from that car and met his demise, whether he's just slipped and fallen. Without any other evidence, I have to believe that he's there somewhere. Next up, Niels Becker. 39-year-old Niels Becker, who was described by those who knew him best as strong, fit, and resilient, prepared for months to embark on a 5-day solo hike in the Alpine National Park. On October 24, 2019, Niels left Upper Jameson Hut to start his journey. It seems as though Niels was right on course to complete his 5-day hike, as on October 26th, he messaged some family members from Vallejo Gatner Hut to tell them he was heading to Mount Sterling and then heading back to his vehicle on the 29th as planned. He never made it back, though, and that's where the mystery begins. Niels was reported as missing after his family hadn't heard from him in 2 weeks, as they had possibly thought he simply needed more time. Being as he was usually very independent and an avid outdoorsman, especially when it came to hiking, they weren't at first concerned. Once the report was made, though, a group of about 70 volunteers, including the police, a dog squad, air wing, bush search and rescue, state emergency service, and the Department of Environment, searched for him around the clock, looking for Niels in, near, and around the location where he said he would have been hiking, which was Victoria's northeast. They searched the entire week until the weekend, when the search was scaled back significantly, mainly due to the temperatures in the bush at night. Senior Sergeant Damian Keegan said authorities were still appealing to the public for information. Like with any of those searches, we always strive to return loved ones back to their family, he says. We'll continue on with that view, and then at some stage we'll be able to find Niels and be able to give some closure to the family. Senior Sergeant Keegan said the police had a few theories as to what could have possibly happened to Niels Becker. The theories mainly dealt with the freezing cold overnight temperatures and the fact that Niels could have walked out of the search area and succumbed to hypothermia and therefore never been found. This is very likely because nobody was sure which route he was taking to get back to his car. Niels' parents, Johanna and Piers Becker, said their son had meticulously planned the hike for an entire 6 months before heading out and chose the dates he did because he wanted to spend his 39th birthday walking in Victoria's high country. They said he'd been training by walking around Melbourne carrying a rucksack. They also talked about Niels having a high affinity for the high country and how he'd hiked it many times before with no issues or concerns. This was to be the longest hike he'd ever gone on alone, though. Niels loved writing and performing Christian music and lived at home with his parents. Last week, I was so optimistic, and my daughter said he'll come out with an epic story. But I think after Tuesday and yesterday, well, we're not so optimistic, Johanna Becker said. His father, Pierre, stated, he's a bit of an independent person. He writes a lot of poetry. A lot of the writing is about the high country around Mount Bueller. Niels' parents asked for anyone with any information to please come forward to the police, especially if they remember having had contact with a solo hiker in that specific or surrounding area. Next up is Warren Meyer. On the morning of March 23, 2008, 57-year-old Warren Meyer left his home to go for a simple hike to enjoy the new spring air. While no one is sure exactly which hike in the Yara ranges this very experienced hiker chose to take, there were only two, with each one able to be completed in about 4 hours or so. Warren's wife kissed him and waved goodbye, expecting him to return in a little more than a 4-hour time frame. He had plans with his wife and some of their friends to meet for lunch that same day, and Warren was a reliable man who wasn't often late, especially without calling. This time was different, though, and when her husband was a no-call, no-show that day for the lunch engagement, she immediately knew something was wrong. Later in that afternoon, Warren's vehicle was found in the Dom Dom Saddle parking area. It seems as though this is where he parked it when he left for his hike that day. Warren Meyer ran a successful civil engineering consultancy business in Elwood, Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, and had no reason whatsoever to have disappeared of his own accord. He was happily married, and he and his wife had 2 children who they adored. He never got to meet his 2 grandchildren, as they were born after he had vanished. His wife believes he would be really enjoying his retirement right now and enjoying their life together had he not vanished off the face of the earth that fine spring day back in March of 2008. Warren's parents passed away, never having received any answers as to what happened to him. He simply walked into the woods for a hike one day and was never seen or heard from again, like so many of the missing people we talk about on this channel. After waiting years to finally have a ruling on how the case was handled and what avenues were taken to ascertain what could have happened to her husband, Ms. Myers received, unsurprisingly, according to her own words, a very unsatisfactory explanation. The inquest determined Warren's date of death was unidentified, his manner of death undetermined, and the place of death unknown. Unbelievable. There are many other factors and concerns the family have about how this case was handled, but to get into the minutiae of each and everything believed by the family to have been mishandled in Warren's disappearance might take away from one simple fact. The fact at the heart of the matter itself. Warren Myers simply vanished, and there's no information whatsoever to even allude to where he may have gone and what might have happened to him. So, as all these hikers continue to vanish, rumor and speculation run rampant through the surrounding towns. Is there someone taking people? Feral humans? Are there cryptids, known or unknown, that are responsible? Is it all or none of the above? Something else entirely? We might never know the answers, as the mountains and forests hold their secrets close. All we can do is continue to search, never giving up in our quest for finding the answers and perhaps bringing some peace of mind and possibly closure to the families of the victims.
All right, that is Steve Stockton Tells Untold Missing Person Mysteries. Once again, we do appreciate Steve Stockton for being a part of the show. He is awesome as always. Like I said, he could read your birth certificate and make it sound suspenseful. So once again, shout out to Steve Stockton. We're going to go ahead and try to jump into the news as we get ready to close out this show, guys. Let's go ahead and get ready to do that right about now.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, UFO and weird news of the week. I was reading this here. People can't believe how accurate children from 1966 predictions for how life in 2000 would be are. They got a lot of it right, spookily so. Interesting. A group of school children turned out to be pretty on the money about a lot of things when asked to predict what the year 2000 would be like in 1966. While Back to the Future Part 2 made it abundantly clear that abusing knowledge of the future for your own profit was a very bad thing, knowing what's coming around the corner could be very useful. Think of the year 2000. Some people were declaring it, quote, the end of history, and reckoned that after generations of struggle and hardship, we basically cracked the formula to life, and it was going to be peace and prosperity from here on out. That turned out to be a load of BS. As 25 years on, we live in a world which feels like it has strayed away from both peace and prosperity despite the steady rate of technological progress. A fascination with the future will always be on our minds. It's where we're all headed, and some of the best predictors were a bunch of British kids who appeared on the classic TV show Tomorrow's World in 1966. Some of their predictions make the likes of the living Nostradamus and Baby Vanga look like bloviating frauds, as the 60s kids managed to get quite a few things very close to right. One of the most accurate predictions came from a boy who said, quote, sheep and cows and livestock, they will be kept in batteries. They won't be allowed to graze on pastures. They'll be kept in buildings altogether. That pretty much turned out to be true, though the factory farm had first emerged in the 1960s as modern technology allowed thousands of chickens to be reared on one farm, Farmers Weekly reports. It was already a thing by the time these children were making predictions, but the kids were all right about the intensity of farming increasing. The battery farm has become much more common with a 26% increase in mega farms, one that houses at least 40,000 birds, 2,000 pigs, and 750 breeding sows from 2011 to 2017, The Guardian reports. One Reddit user wrote of the kids' prediction, quote, the one about animals being shoved in a building and artificially raised, too real and sad. One Reddit user commented, 60s capitalists eagerly scribbling notes as children tell them how to destroy the world. Another of the children said of the year 2000, quote, I don't think it's going to be so nice. All machines everywhere, everyone doing everything for you. You'll get all bored. I don't think it will be so nice. While its true technology has now seeped into our everyday lives more than ever, the little girl clearly did not envision the birth of Netflix that she thinks will be bored all the time. Machines doing everything for you would be pretty great, but if AI is going to take all the work, it seems like they're scrapping the work of creatives to churn out crap while humans are still stuck with the tougher jobs. Another kid said, quote, people won't be able to live in ordinary houses because that would take up too much room. They'll have to be in flats piled up one on top of the other. Quote, the houses would be rather small and everything would be very cramped. Turns out she was pretty accurate, with which finding the average UK home is now 20% smaller than in the 1970s, so we certainly are more cramped. However, as of 2018, only 20% of UK households live in flats. Homes built in the UK are among the smallest in Europe, so we are all living in some very cramped conditions where there's not enough room to swing a cat, should you wish to do that. Another prediction that raised eyebrows concerned the rise of automation and what people would do without the jobs taken. One eloquent schoolboy noted, quote, I don't think there's going to be atomic warfare, but I think there's going to be all this automation. People are going to be out of work and a great population, and I think something has to be done about it. Quote, if I wasn't a biologist, that's what I'd like to do something about the population problem, try and temper it somehow. I don't know how. On that front, birth rates are dropping all around the world, which is set to cause something of a demographic crisis, as there won't be enough people working to sustain older generations through the illness and infirmity of age. Perhaps robots hurrying up and making things could help cover this gap, or perhaps we'll all be wiped out in nuclear fire before the end of 2025. We'll go ahead and jump into the next story here. The doorway effect explains why you might forget what you were doing when you walk into a room. It's so annoying when you don't know why you just stepped into a room. The horrible sensation you get when you completely forget why you walked into a room has finally been explained. And don't worry, it's completely normal. Christian Jarrett, a cognitive neuroscience and science writer, has explained in his column for BBC's Science Focus that what we experience is called the doorway effect. It's a term used to describe when people forget their initial purpose when entering a new room. Quote, fear not, you are far from the only one to have this rather unsettling experience, Jarrett said. In short, the doorway effect takes place when our brains like to compartmentalize activities and information based on environmental context. When we move from room to room, the door acts like a metaphorical boundary between these contexts. That's when the brain likes to completely reset, update its current understanding of the new environment. Jared noted that a team at the University of Queensland explored the doorway effect even further. Quote, they found that passing through doorways that joined identical rooms mostly didn't impact memory, perhaps because there wasn't enough of a changed context to create a significant event boundary, he said. It was only when these researchers distracted their volunteers with a simultaneous secondary task that the doorways between identical rooms affected memory. He continued, the Queensland team said, this chimes with everyday experience in that it's mostly when we're distracted with our mind on other things that we're inclined to arrive in a room and forget what we came for. Jared said that the study also suggested that the doorway effect is more likely to occur when there is a significant change in context. For instance, if you leave your living room for the garden. How to not let the doorway effect take over. The science writer said the new results also pointed to a potential cure, which is to try and stay focused on your purpose when you pass through a doorway on an errand. While that might sound like too much work, Jarrett suggests that instead, you could always make a note on the back of your hand. Personally, I use my phone's notes app to try to keep track of my errands. But even with everything written down, I still don't really know why I'll walk into the kitchen to look for the TV remote. Wow, isn't that something? I know every single person out there has experienced the doorway effect. And that is amazing that it even has this term. So next I want to know, and I've done that. I'm going into another room and ended up in the kitchen and then realized that I was looking for the remote. Yeah, why would the remote be in the kitchen? Why am I in the kitchen looking for the remote? Now, the other thing I want to find out is, where does your remote go when it's sitting right in front of you? So you go to look for your remote. You're looking all around you. You're looking right in front of you, looking all around you. No remote. You get up. You walk to a secondary place you think it might be. You don't find it. You come right back to where you were, and it's sitting right there in front of where you were. What is that called? There's got to be a term for that. There's got to be a study for that. I want to know what it is. But we're going to go ahead and get ready to wrap this thing up. Shout out to Arke Andrews for making it awesome tonight for hours 1 and 2, and actually stepping in and making lemons, turning lemons into strawberry lemonade for hour 3. Shout out to Arke Andrews for doing that. I do appreciate him. I do appreciate Steve Stockton tells Untold Missing Person Mysteries as well. I also appreciate the man that you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot. He's the man that rocks us out each and every weekend if you catch us on the After Hours show, as he teaches us to never say never again, because yes, the phenomena is real. With that being said, that means anything and everything is possible. If you enjoyed the show tonight, if you enjoyed Arke tonight, make sure you hit the like button and throw your horns up, right? It has been a pleasure once again serving you as your host. We appreciate you as well for tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. What's that, you ask? We own the night. This show has been copyright SOR Media Ventures Limited, Spaced Out Radio. It's been a pleasure serving you as your host. I'm Mr. Rob G. This is the After Hours Radio Show edition. Filling in for Dave Scott. And to all you space travelers out there, this is not a goodbye nor a farewell. However, you can best believe as we go off air for the night, we will be back doing the same thing, same time, same place. Thank you so much for coming in. We will talk again soon. You guys all take care. Okay, that was awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Let me go ahead and not do a Dave and make sure that we publish the show and not delete the Spreaker show. I'll be able to hang out with you guys for a minute. I am in my office, though, across town from my home. So once I leave here, I will be driving home. Let's see. Hope you guys enjoyed yourself tonight. Filling in for David Scott. Once again, let me take a moment to say that. If you are here experiencing After Hours radio show, we do this on the weekend, Saturday and Sundays. I know, the week crew, Monday through Friday, sometimes when the weekend comes, you get into doing other things. And so you take a break from Spaced Out Radio until Monday again. But I'm telling you, we do some awesome stuff on the weekends. And we'd appreciate the week crew to come check us out on the weekends. We do really cool stuff, have great conversations, great guests. It's a fun time. Drew Banky is with us with the After Hours wrap up. It's always a fun time on the weekend. And let me see here. What's the name of this show? I'm a one-finger typer, guys, sometimes, so be patient. Okay. Looking good. All right, that is all done. Yeah. Definitely appreciate you guys for coming on out, hanging out with me tonight. Tomorrow there will not be an After Hours show as we have a previous engagement, so I will be setting up a archive show for tomorrow night, but the live chat will be open, so make sure you're there to hang out with the chat, and I'll pick an awesome show. I don't know which one I'll pick yet, but I'm going to pick a really awesome show that you will enjoy. And then Sunday, we will be here. We'll be right here on the After Hours radio show with Karen Hill. And then I'll be back on Monday with Dave's guest. I'm not sure who it is. I think a parapsychologist or something along those lines. It should be an awesome conversation, though. We'll make sure that. With that being said, we are going to get ready to shut this thing down. It has been a pleasure sitting with you guys tonight. Enjoy the rest of your night. Have a great weekend. Put good energy out there and you shall get good energy back. For the people out there who are holding the UFO secrets, who was it? It was, I think, Karen in the Wu Train sent me a message and asked me, why do you use the song Retribution? What does it mean for you? And I told her, I was like, they're holding the UFO secret from us. They've been doing it all this time. And, it's time for them to tell the truth. And because of that, we want retribution. And that's just how it is. And that's how we're going to get up out of here tonight, guys. So once again, this is the After Hours radio show edition, filling in for Dave Scott. This is how we do it on the weekend. You guys have a great rest of your night. Take care.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.